is the pre-Thanksgiving, the hump day. Never has hump day meant more hump day than it does the Wednesday before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Because that's the day that everyone goes back home and goes out and sees people that they don't want to see. They think they want to see them, and they see them like, actually maybe not.
They get like
wasn't as cool as I thought it would be.
They get wasted on and then play football the next day.
True.
Morning.
Or you stay in Cincinnati, and we're gonna have a fantastic time. I'm pretty excited. We've got
Palm souffle season.
Yeah, we've got some great football games tomorrow. That'll be fun. We're going to talk about those. We're going to also talk about a little Super Bowl future action, and then we're going to get into the Thanksgiving games and then the Sunday games, so that if you are sitting at home today with family, hopefully not. Hopefully you get to wait till tomorrow. But if you're sitting at home tomorrow or Friday, or you're like waiting in line, God forbid, at like some store for Black Friday. I hope none of our listeners do that, by the way. But if you do, we're here for you.
Savage.
We are here for you. So we actually wrote 2 articles this week. We did a Thanksgiving Day article, and the funny thing was that all the lines moved.
Yeah, it's unreal.
Tried to write them.
We'll talk about that when the game comes up. But yeah, it's a frustrating part of this.
Let's do this. I'm very curious about if we went on football Twitter and you had to power rank the optimal Thanksgiving Day guests. You're having them over to your house. You got to cook for them.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do this. Let's do top 3 and then bottom 2.
Oh, no. Well, the problem
Let's offend some people.
The problem is that I'm not as good of a cook as the first person I'm going to put, which is obviously like Josh Hermsmeyer, our friend, who is a far more accomplished cook than I would be. But yeah, he's a really fun person to hang out with, and I think he would be like along the same lines as me, as like saying whatever's on his mind, and it would make for a fun get together. What about you? Let's do snake draft.
So is that your third? The thing is that we're gonna have similar people.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I wouldn't. I'm gonna say all of my 3 are in cluster 1, unranked.
That's not how this works.
Okay.
So Josh is number 3.
Well, I guess since I picked him first, let's just go with that. Yeah.
Okay. This is important. Order matters. Number 3 for me is, and this is tough because I really thought about the order here and like optimal situation of who could come to my place and actually add value. So number 3 is Evan Silva. And Evan Silva is number 3 for this reason and this reason only. Entertainment. I know that he is going to bring a lot of entertainment. He'll probably bring some good booze. And it's not going to be, you worry about people coming over who are going to be like dull and timid. Not him. So Evan Silva is number 3 for me.
Yeah, he's a full send type of person in a situation like that. Okay. I'm trying to think. I don't know. I'm gonna go second is a good friend of mine who again would also like, just because I'm like a huge football guy, right? I like watching football regardless of whether or not it's like Detroit, Chicago with David Blow at quarterback or Mississippi against Mississippi State. I'm going to go with my buddy Matt Collar because he would be there with me to watch those games because he, like me, is indiscriminate about his football viewing.
Is he a cook? He's not really a cook, is he?
No. The first 5 times me and Matt hung out, we went to Culver's.
I don't know what that is.
Culver's is Culver's is like the Chipotle of like burger places. So it's like better than obviously McDonald's, but it's also like, fast cash.
Does it have the same you have the same repercussions?
Not as Chipotle, no.
Not as Chipotle. All right. Number 2 for me is this is tough. Number 2 for me is going to be Kevin Clark of The Ringer.
Okay.
the reason I'm going to put him on this list is that he's a multi-sport guy. Like, he can talk about things other than football. And the Ringer's in L.A. So that would mean I'm having Thanksgiving in Los Angeles. And so I was trying to think of someone that's out there in L.A. Plus, he's a funny dude.
Yeah.
I appreciate his Twitter humor.
Okay. So unfortunately, I'm sort of torn here. Obviously, our guy Ben Baldwin would be fun to watch football with. But after this last week, I feel like he would just be making fun of me the entire time for thinking that Aaron Rodgers was, still elite.
So it'd be like having me over.
Yeah, exactly. So, and he might be very well your third choice or your first choice in this case as well. So I'm not going to go with Ben, even though he certainly came to my mind. I'm going to go, and this is a guy who I've been on I've hosted shows with him probably 30 times, and I've never gotten to meet him in person. My friend Jason Brown, who runs Climbing the Pocket, just an all around great guy, and I feel like somebody who. You want to hang out with people who tell you the same jokes. You they get the same jokes as you, and I feel like he and I would share the similar jokes. So, yeah, Jason Brown would be one that I would really enjoy.
All right, number one was easy for me. This is a lock. This was number one. Number 2 and 3 were tough. I had to cut some people out. But number 1 is Josh Hermsmeyer, and it's not close. It is not even close, because the most important thing about Thanksgiving is that someone that comes over appreciates good food. Josh would not only contribute, he would appreciate, and here's the most important part, he would not bring me a shitty bottle of wine, which is my least favorite thing. You come over to my place, you bring me crappy alcohol, and it's like, what am I supposed to do with this?
Yeah.
I'm just going to put it over here in the corner. Oh, thanks for this $20 bottle of tequila. Let me go pour it out. And then put the bottle there so it looks like I drank it. So I know he would bring, if I wanted him to help cook, he would help. If I didn't, he would bring great alcohol. And he's got a sense of humor that is not overwhelming, but would fit in well. So
it was hard to drill it down to 3 because there's so many, like Sean Lee, all these people.
There's a lot of great people.
A lot of great people. So it's hard to like.
Speaking of. Great people.
It's hard to shrink it down.
Bottom 2.
Does Ben make your list as a bottom person because he would just rip on us the whole time?
We're gonna find out, but you're going first.
Okay, so here's my first one, and I think he qualifies. Okay. You remember when a certain relative of mine came to the office and started to talk your ear off about the unquantifiable things that we
Can't
don't quantify?
Yep.
I feel like having Thanksgiving dinner with Booger McFarland would be that. In that, like, the entire time I'm stuck there watching football with somebody who's just over talking.
You have to respect him. He's your guest.
You have to, but he makes you want to choke somebody, right?
I actually thought about Booger. Booger does not make my list, and here's why. I am pretty confident that Booger and I could just have a good time. Just be like, look,
I don't know, man.
We both want to eat. Booger loves to eat. I love to eat. We wouldn't need to argue about football. We could just enjoy the games and eat. And so for that reason, Booger almost made my top 3. My bottom 2, number 2 is a combo. It is if I had to have Ben Baldwin and Steve Palazzolo over at the same time.
And they were fighting.
Because that would be, I like both of them individually, but them together is so annoying and awful and terrible that it makes me want to take Twitter off of my phone. And I don't know that either of them, I think they would know that each other were coming over and they just forget to bring anything. They'd show up empty-handed and just immediately start arguing on, it'd be awful. So that is my, that's number 2 for me. Who's number 1? The person you least want to come over for Thanksgiving.
This is so hard. I'm going to go with Betts.
Okay. Why?
Well, because Betts has this way of like making me very self-conscious about how much I understand or don't understand football.
Oh, interesting.
And so he would be the exact opposite of Booger. So, like, Booger would reinforce that I think we're on the right side of all these discussions. And Betts makes me self-doubt myself enough that, like, he's very valuable to talk to, like, day to day. But in a setting where I'm just trying to enjoy the day, I don't feel like constantly wondering if I'm an idiot.
I agree. I like that one. I like Betts, though. He's funny. Here is a question for you. Does Darren Rovell count?
Yeah, I think he does.
About, like, gambling and betting a lot.
Well, that's like his job, right? So yeah.
Darren Rovell would be number one for me. It's not even close. The only person that comes close, and this was my backup if you said Darren Rovell doesn't count, would be Greg Gabe. If Greg Gabe would smell, he'd bring nothing. He has horrible opinions. It would be absolutely awful. I would just
goes full send on Greg Gabe.
I'd just leave. I'd go have Thanksgiving somewhere else.
Greg Gabe would be talking to you about the XFL and how like it's the next greatest thing, which, like, I know you have zero time for.
Just zero. I would be angry that I was having to give him some of the food that I had prepared well.
Well, you know what you would also be upset about would be the fact that, you know, the Bears are going to drop kick the Lions on Thursday, and he's going to be like, see, Mitch is a winner.
Right?
Yeah.
All right, those were our football Thanksgiving guests power rankings. Let's talk Super Bowl because we got a question from the dark web.
Brought to you by
Samporanta. It's a sparkling water for men. By the way, if you are a man out there, Thanksgiving, and you were looking for something to drink, you know, White Claw's all the rage, but actually, this is what you want.
Samporanta was there before White Claw. Let's not forget.
True. And the question from the dark web is this. At AA Ronius, Aaron Franklin says, is there a statistical model that can be applied to the peaking too early theories? You did some research.
I did, and all of these things, you know, when you whip up this analysis as fast as we did, are going to be subject to some biases, right, like endpoints and all that kind of stuff. But I just looked at basically the top 3 teams in our ELO ranking through 12 weeks, which is where we're currently at. And it was interesting because, you know, when you look at, like, let's say the top 2 teams, only 6 of them have, like, basically, you know, won the Super Bowl that were, you know, top 2 team. And you look back at last season, for example, the top 2 teams in our ELO ranking at this particular point in time were New Orleans and Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Neither of whom won to New England, who ultimately sort of like kind of messed around all year and won the Super Bowl. In 2017, it was New England and Atlanta who were our top 2 teams for that point in time. Atlanta was sort of surging at the time. Again, neither one won the Super Bowl. But you even go back to like previous seasons, like, you know, for example, like you look at 2007, the Giants weren't even like a top 10 team in the league at this point in time, and they ended up creeping up. Same with 2011. So it's one of those where obviously the better teams, you know, right now have a better chance at winning the Super Bowl, which we'll talk about with Super Bowl futures. But there is this idea of like, okay, if you expend too much of your like edge at this point in time, people are going to catch up to it. And we're seeing that, you know, with Baltimore, like there's probably a bunch of bullets they have left in the chamber, but we're already seeing some of the things that they're employing that are just like being cheat codes now that the smart teams will figure out by the time it gets to January.
Yeah, so I had 2 thoughts on this. The first was exactly what you said, which is that if you are doing really well and you are unique in some way, teams are going to be preparing to stop you. But I think the sneaky part of this is that teams that are doing well right now, there's a good chance that they have had good injury luck. And that there's look, if I have injuries that happen in the middle of the season, I can recover by the end of the season. But if I have an injury that happens at the end of the season, then I might not be able to recover, right? So I think that would be a reason for why a team might be peaking too early. Not necessarily that they're actually playing too well for their own good, but that regression is coming.
Yeah, and regression is undefeated, right? And that's another thing is like, you know, when you look at Baltimore, they're playing extremely well, but they're also running good. Like they're getting lucky. They're getting lucky in some spots that they wouldn't be getting lucky in later on, and so you know, it's better to be lucky and good, but it's not sustainable, and that's basically what, you know, I think we're seeing here with some of these teams, including San Francisco, including you know, Baltimore. And what we're not seeing necessarily in a team like Kansas City, right, which is a team that, like, I think a lot of people are sleeping on because they've had the injuries and everything that you were talking about, which they can recover from now. If they have the same injuries, if Tyreek Hill gets hurt, Eric Fisher get hurt, Mahomes get hurt now, they'd be screwed, right? But they got hurt earlier in the season, and that's why I think even though they're underdogs to get a bye in the first round of the AFC playoffs, they might be a better value to win the Super Bowl than people indicate.
Can I tell you something kind of crazy about Baltimore?
What's that?
So Baltimore is scoring on a league high 35% of their drives.
Scoring touchdowns, yeah, right?
No, scoring.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe I did this wrong, but regardless, it's higher, much higher. Whether it's scoring touchdowns or scoring at all, I believe it was just scoring. And the crazy thing about it is that they are not getting great starting field position. Their starting field position is like league average, if not a little worse. And if you look at a team like the Niners, they've had 23 drives start in opponent's territory. The Ravens had 11. But the Ravens are scoring on like 10% more of their drives than the Niners are. Their ability to just matriculate the ball down the field is nuts.
Well, and it's to the point of, like, if you're the Rams, for example, and you get in a 4th and short situation at your own side of the field, you're like, well, I mean, we can't get the ball right back to Lamar Jackson in our own territory. It's like, well, you have just as good – honestly, it's worse if they get the ball at their own 20 and take 7 minutes off the game and then score 7 points on you than if they were just to score quickly and give you the ball back. I think it's –
that is touchdown percentage.
It's interesting. Field position, I think, matters when an offense sucks. When an offense is great, I don't think it matters a bit. Obviously it does, but like to the degree that people care, like your opportunity to convert a 4th down if you're the opposing team more than makes up for the field position you gain by punting. So,
yes, I will correct myself. That was scoring a touchdown on 35% of their drives,
which is unbelievable.
It's nuts. The Chiefs last year were higher than them. By like a couple of 0.1% or whatever. But that's the 4th highest since 2006. And they're a team that runs the ball.
Yeah.
Right, which is really funny. They have the best expected points added per pass play in the NFL this season. All right, so if you have to bet on one team to win the Super Bowl right now, who are you taking?
I said New Orleans last week, so I'm going to change. I'm going to actually go with Minnesota 20-1.
Wow.
Yeah. And I have not been obviously the biggest Vikings supporter, but
makes sense. It makes sense. I mean, look at what the Packers looked like last week.
Yeah, the only issue with the Packers is they go to Detroit in Week 17 to face David Blow. Minnesota on the road is their toughest game. If Minnesota wins out and if Minnesota were to finish with one, they finish with the same record as Green Bay, the Packers have a decided edge in terms of tiebreakers because the division record for Green Bay is better. Minnesota has lost not only to Green Bay once, but also Chicago. Yep. And, Green Bay would have swept Chicago, Detroit, and split with Minnesota, so they would get the division title. And having to go on the road 3 times is tough. Green Bay's upcoming schedule is like New York Giants, Washington Redskins, Chicago Bears, Detroit, Minnesota. They could very well be terrible and still finish the season 4-1.
The remaining Minnesota-Green Bay game is in Minnesota.
In Minnesota on the day before Christmas Eve. Yep.
On Minnesota.
Monday night.
Now, we saw Aaron Rodgers look despondent. Like, he legitimately looked – I think I look this way sometimes. Tell me if this is accurate self-awareness. Sometimes I look like I would rather be anywhere but where I am. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think both of us have a tough poker face, not a good poker face sometimes. Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers looked like he would rather be in he'd literally be spending
He looked like he'd rather be on a date with his girlfriend Danica Patrick than
Okay, that's mean. And rude, and Danica Patrick is a nice lady. He looked like he'd rather be spending time in Antarctica than on that field in San Francisco. So and Kirk Cousins, I think Sam Monson tweeted this out. He's like the highest graded quarterback since week 3. So I like that a lot. I would go with, unfortunately, New Orleans. Actually, I think New England at 3-1 would be the.
Yeah, you're getting better payout, but at this point, it's hard to discount. Now, the interesting thing, we've always said, okay, New England's a value to win the Super Bowl. New England's a value to win the Super Bowl. Even though these markets are correlated, sometimes they don't match. And this is the first week that I've looked at this where New England to win the AFC is actually a value now at plus 125. And of course, that's all because of Baltimore, right? Baltimore is taking, I think, the market by storm here. New England was better than even money to win the AFC all the way until this week, and now we have them at plus 116. They're plus 125. That's a pretty good value as well.
There are a couple that I like, not conference but division.
Yeah,
I really like Dallas minus 200 because I think Philly is a disaster.
Yeah, we would make it more like minus 400, which I think is a little low on Philly, but I agree if you're willing to lay 2-1 to.
But here's the one I like most: Seattle, plus 160.
We talked about that last week as
well.
well.
That easier schedule. The Niners are everyone is high on them. They think they can now beat the Ravens and the Saints because they beat the Packers. And I'm going to pump the brakes on that. They're a big underdog to Baltimore. We're going to talk about that game. And Seattle has that Week 17 game at home and a much easier schedule.
If you want a couple of these things, obviously, if you went Minnesota to win the Super Bowl, Seattle to win the NFC West, since they play this week, you're going to get the better end of. You're going to get one of those to move in your direction. And since they're both plus money bets, might be something worth doing. Yeah, you're right about the Seahawks. Their upcoming schedule, pretty favorable. Minnesota at home's a tough game. Rams on the road does not look like a tough game anymore. Panthers on the road again, with Kyle Allen. Yeah, I think you get a good game from them, but still probably a game the Seahawks should win. Cardinals at home, and then 49ers at home probably will determine the fate of that bet.
Alrighty, you ready to get into this?
Okay.
So Thanksgiving slate, the morning-ish game, depends when you wake up. Chicago at Detroit. So no Stafford. Now Jeff Driscoll is a question mark. And I argued for the fact that if Jeff Driscoll can play and he can't run as well, it might actually help because he just has to say, hey, who should I throw the ball up to? Marvin Jones and Kenny Golladay. Those two guys are great. And they're at home, and Mitch Trubisky's on the road, and it's Thanksgiving morning, and his coach whispered sweet nothings into his ear just a few weeks ago, and all, was terrible. And then they just squeaked by the New York Giants, which doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I would argue, though, that the Detroit just lost to Washington, which is, again, something they're capable of.
Is that bad?
Yeah. In this game, so just a little bit to talk about what our process is. When this game opened, we talked about this on our Monday morning podcast. It was Detroit +1. We talked about that. He said, okay, we pondered what that meant. And then by the time it came to looking at what our model had for, writing up games this week, not a whole lot of value on the two later games. This game had some value at Chicago -2.5 and also Chicago on the money line. These have both moved out. So when we filed our article with our editor yesterday, we had Chicago -2.5. It's now -3.5. Basically, if you can get -3.5 at -105, it's a break-even bet. So we're still gonna have it on the article. But again, you're getting the worst of the number here, I think. I don't think it moves appreciably if it comes out that Driscoll's not going to start and David Blow is going to start in his spot. I think that's baked into the movement right now. If you like Chicago, you might be able to wait, and if you get positive news on Driscoll, to get the number back to -3, that might be preferable. But right now, that's really sort of what we're going to go with. Total on this game 38.
It's moved down, and I see 38, and I go, come on.
Yeah.
You got to take the over. But, dude, the Bears offensively are just a trash fire. And the Lions, I would actually, if Driscoll doesn't start, I kind of like the chances of, a defensive touchdown here or there. But, man, it's tough. I bet there's going to be a lot of money on the under.
Detroit's 3 receivers and tight end are among the league's best group, I think. Even though Hawkinson's been kind of a disappointment since week 1. Galladay, Jones.
Galladay and Jones have combined for the most contested catches and the most deep catches of any duo. So
that will help if they just tell, hey, David Blow, look, you're throwing YOLO balls all game.
Yeah.
That's what your role is here. So I don't know. Chicago is still. So we wrote this up in the article. Chicago is only giving up 1/10 of 1 yard more per play than last year. Last year was good enough for second in league. This year it's 6th. This season, they're 14th in turnover per drive, per drive generated. Last year, they were first, right? So when we talk about betting the Bears win total under, the defensive regression is not talent or process, it's results, which are defensively very noisy, and we're exactly seeing that with the Bears. Last season's game, the Bears had to start their backup. They won and covered based upon a defensive touchdown at the very end of the game on Matthew Stafford. I can see, they're still playing very well defensively, and I could see them either with this total going over or them covering the spread, doing so with defensive and special teams touchdowns, given the fact that they're Cordero Patterson's the best kick returner in the league as well.
Okay, once we get to Cordero Patterson being a reason, it is time to move on. And the Bills-Cowboys game takes on a new flavor now, because we talked about this on Monday, but the Cowboys could have lost by this score or by this margin to New England in New England in a multitude of ways that would not have us talking about, well, Jason Garrett should be fired, like all of these, Jerry Jones kind of having a conniption in front of the media left and right about his coaching staff. The way that they lost to New England was so many little things, all this, these kind of coaching matters aspects of the game. Yep. At the same time, they had 2 tripping calls called on them, which has never happened before, and that may very well have been the reason that they ended up losing that game. So now they play the Bills, and this takes on kind of a new feeling because of the surrounding components of that New England loss. Dallas has to win this game. And I think that's baked into the number, right? It's why it's 6.5 even after they just lost to New England without scoring an offensive touchdown. So Greenline has this basically, break even. It's been moving around, so get yourself an elite subscription so you can see what happens, should it move. But at 6.5, you have to take one side of this. Which one are you going with?
Yeah, I take Buffalo. I mean, I think Josh Allen to me is somebody who I've doubted quite a bit, and while I still don't like him long term for the Bills, I think he does. I think they do enough things to make him comfortable enough for him to have some success. And that's throwing to Cole Beasley, Cole Beasley revenge game tomorrow. That's, throwing to the tight ends underneath. That's going over the top to John Brown, who's been one of the best free agent signings in the entire league. So I think the Bills do enough offensively, especially against the Dallas team that in the coverage is not as good as they were last year, especially at the linebacker position. And I think the Bills defense is very good. And they do things that make it hard to play offense. They're physical up front defensively. Their linebackers move extremely well. And their defensive backfield is one of the best in the NFL. And I think that that's what it takes to beat a team like Dallas, who is one of the best teams in the NFL in terms of expected points, added in the pass game. They've regressed, I think, substantially since early part of the season, but I think Kellen Moore does a pretty good job of calling plays. I like Buffalo here for some of those edge case reasons. And while I don't necessarily think they'll win the game outright, I think that they'll keep it close enough to cover the spread.
Yeah, defense doesn't matter. What mattered in that New England game was that Dallas had never seen rain, and they're playing in Dallas. And I think this is going to be that's going to be a game changer for them. Amari Cooper is not going to have 0 catches, right? Stephon Gilmore, Tre'Davious White's great. But
he's also not a man corner. He's his own corner.
Right.
He plays zone, yeah.
Thank you. Sorry. So they will be able to exploit the Bills defense. It's not one good defense to the next. They're going to have the same result. It's a totally different setup. And Josh Allen is just such a worse quarterback than Dak Prescott. They both can run the ball just fine. But when it comes to throwing the ball, it's a total disaster for Buffalo.
Josh Allen runs like Mo Schrute, so he's.
I mean, the only quarterbacks with only quarterback playing this week with a lower PFF grade per snap is Mitch Trubisky. So,
but they do a good job, I think, of not accentuating his flaws.
Yeah,
right?
That's over the past couple of years, by the way. Sure, but the flaws that he has will not enable them to score enough points to win this game.
Okay.
And so I think Dallas comes out and wins by a touchdown. That's why I like 6.5.
Okay.
Dak Prescott, baby. Don't let me down.
Let's talk about our favorite team, though.
We're gonna be here watching this game, so I really hope this is a good game. It was 6.5. Saints are now 7-point favorites in Atlanta. What they're trying to make a Thanksgiving Day tradition for some unknown, ungodly
Please
reason.
don't.
The Falcons can no longer make the playoffs, so this is their Super Bowl, right? Mm-hmm. So why would you not take them +7?
Nothing like the famous last words have always been, why not just take the Falcons?
Yep.
So no, I mean
Lattimore banged up.
New Orleans is banged up a little bit. They were scared last week in terms of the Carolina Panthers gave them a game that I don't think they expected to give them. I do think, you look at that number with the Saints being 9.5-point favorites against Carolina, and, that sort of implying that they're basically a touchdown favorite, maybe a 6-point favorite on a neutral field against Carolina, a team that Atlanta just beat, and then now they're laying 7 on the road. I do think it's a little hefty of a price, but I don't know here. I think there's just too many things that go wrong with Atlanta here, but I don't know. I wouldn't bet this game myself.
Fair, but you got to pick one.
Yeah, okay, so I'll lay the points with New Orleans. I'll take the other side of.
This is Thanksgiving. You don't have options here.
Yeah,
you can't be like, I'm going to wait. Nope, this is your only option. This is the Super Bowl for the Falcons. So getting 7 at home. The Julio Jones injury thing, I think, is driving this to 7. And, hey, maybe if you wait around, you can get 7.5. But
he's one player that does move the line, I would say.
He absolutely moves the line. But here's the thing, is that that the Falcons sometimes, I think, do rely on Julio a little too much. I think he actually plays. I don't think he's not going to play. Like I said, this is Super Bowl. By the way, do you know how to mute?
No, I don't. Sorry.
All right, whatever. It's the Falcons. Don't take the Falcons. Don't be an idiot.
I think.
Let me be the idiot. Let me take this on for you. Let me take this burden on for you. God, what a disaster.
I honestly think if you look at the underlying metrics, for example, Atlanta's a better passing team than New Orleans this season.
Okay, we need to move on
with EPA and all that kind of stuff. But it's the Falcons, man. It's the Falcons, man. You can't do it.
Jeez, I can't believe you just said that. I'm trying to convince myself not to. It's like walking up to someone trying to quit smoking and be like, "Hey, man, want one?"
Yeah, doesn't.
Hey, buddy, you heard of this thing called e-cig? They're healthy for you. All the vegans are doing it.
Oh my gosh.
I have a Cincy Y story for you, by the way.
Excited.
Right. Let's go on to Sunday. So we're going to discuss the good games and run through the crappy games and hopefully try and pick a lock of the week. Our lock of the week last week, we're not even going to discuss. Baltimore goes back home after going to Los Angeles and just destroying the Rams on Monday night. They play the Niners, who also destroyed a team in California on Sunday night in the Green Bay Packers. Which win was more impressive? What the Ravens did or what the Niners did?
Ravens.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, I think the Niners sputtered a little bit offensively. Like the Niners, should have been up by. I mean, the Niners actually had to punt a few times.
Okay.
They're both. I mean, it's a splitting hairs, but they both had to punt. The Niners struggled to protect Garoppolo on a few drives, and the Ravens struggled at nothing.
Yeah, the Ravens. We talked about the speed of the Rams being good for them. Turns out it was just terrible. The Rams are an undisciplined defense, and that's the worst thing you can be against the Ravens. I mean, it was comical.
Brute.
The Green Bay Packers had some players that we knew were going to cause the Niners some issues, especially on the edge, and the Niners were still able to put up points. George Kittle came back from injury and was dominant. So I do think they were both very impressive. To me, the Ravens, I think I tweeted this out. The Packers ran on 3rd and 13 on their first or second drive. So they gave up right from the beginning. Like, if you do that, you are giving up. You say, I have no shot at winning this game.
Yep.
I am punting for sure on my second possession. Peace out. See you guys later. What do you guys? I'm going to get an early start to the bar. What do you guys want? A couple gin and tonics? You want a pitcher?
Oh, my God.
I'll put it on my tab, man. Don't worry about it. Welcome. I mean, it was embarrassing. So, to me, that was a little bit more about the Rams, and the Ravens just do what they do, which is pile on. Whereas for the Packers, it was like, hey, this is a chance to get home field. This is a big game to show that you're not a joke, that you can beat some real competition. They did not. The Ravens are now 6-point favorites at home. Yeah. So do you think that – I think the market seems to agree with you that the Ravens game was far more impressive than the Niners game. Oh. And that's why, for this reason, if I had to take one side of this game, I would take the Niners.
Yeah, and we don't show value on this game right now, but when it was a moment in time yesterday when it creeped up to 6.5, and that is a bettable number. If you can get 6.5 minus 110, I think the Niners are absolutely a play for all the reasons you said. I think at some point in time there's going to be regression, and at some point in time. The things that should cause points to kind of go in the direction of the opponent will happen to the Ravens, right? So you look at this spot, for example, the Niners get an extra day of rest. The Niners, their defense, like you look at like them defensive front, I think we overvalued how much Aaron Donald singularly meant to the Rams last week. But when you look at, Sebastian Joseph Day and Michael Brockers are just like, okay, guys, yep. Right? Whereas you look at the Niners defensive front and they're brilliant from left to right.
They're also all big and strong.
Not
as many speed guys.
They also don't
pure speed guys.
They also don't require blitzes to get pressure.
Yep.
Their linebackers are athletic, especially Fred Warner, and they showed last week that they're willing to play man coverage against receivers that don't scare them. And I like Marquise Brown as a player, but if I'm playing the Ravens, those are the players I make beat me. I make Willie Snead beat me, right? I make the guy Seth Roberts beat me, right? And I think the Niners are prepared to do something like that, and in which case I don't know. They probably don't stop the Ravens, but they do enough. And then offensively, they're, I think, every bit as unique as the Ravens are. They just don't get the fanfare because the Ravens were the most recent team to be awesome on the stage. So 6.5 is a playable number for me.
I love this spot for the Niners. Now, I've been great at jinxing the Niners all season. As we march towards Miami, Baltimore, we're getting closer there. But I'm going to pump the brakes just a little bit. So I think there's two kind of ways that they could be viewing this game. The first is, the Ravens, everyone's talking about the Ravens. Everyone should be talking about us.
Yeah.
We're the better team. So they come in with a little chip on
their
shoulder.
They go all Kirk Cousins on it.
But here's the problem. They then go to New Orleans in a game that whether they win or lose this game is really the one that matters because it's in the NFC, because New Orleans is a team that they are going to be competing with for home field.
Right.
So it is, in a way, a little bit of a trap. But here's what I'll point out. In terms of ELO ranking, the Niners are 4th. The Ravens are 2nd. So if you're telling me that this should be, that the Ravens should have to win by a touchdown to cover, I think that's too many points. So if it gets to 6.5.
Well, yeah, I agree. And we had this little heuristic that's on, if you go to PFF Greenline, which I'll just give it a little bit away, but being what the Niners are in ELO means they're about 6 points better than the average team on a neutral field. The Ravens, where they are in ELO, about 8.
Yep.
So that pure difference is 2. Right now, you're getting 3 with the 3-point home field advantage. So again, there's just a numerical advantage there. And then you add in the rest differential and all that kind of stuff. Of course, San Francisco is playing West Coast to East Coast at 1 o'clock, so there's some things that go against them. But I agree with you. I think this is such a fun game, and I think if you want to bet this, the Niners are the right side. We don't necessarily offer value there, but yeah.
The worry is that the Ravens blitz a ton, and where Jimmy G has crash is when the blitz gets pressure, he sputters. All right, the next game that we are going to discuss is the Chiefs and the Raiders, because this game matters. Probably didn't expect it to matter.
So this was a game that on Monday morning you nailed the side, I nailed the total, right? Mm-hmm. Because You said at 10, this is not going to hold. People are going to like the Raiders, and we're seeing that. We see it at 9.5 now. The total early in the week was 54.5. It's now 51.5. So we were saying, okay, this might be an under game, and the market certainly agrees there. So there's been some jockeying already here. Now, with the Chiefs now laying single digits, where do you stand?
I stand pretty firmly with Green Line, which is, I think 9.5 is the right number, and I have a real hard time touching it. If I have to bet one side, though, there is no way that I'm not taking Pat Mahomes against the Raiders defense, because that is a far bigger advantage for the Chiefs than it is the other side, which is the Raiders versus the Chiefs defense. The Chiefs defense sucks, but we have been way down on the Chiefs offense this season, and I am not ready to punt on it. So that's where I would go.
If you look at the secondary markets here, like if you look at the basically the price to bet the Chiefs to win the AFC West, it tells you an awful lot about what they think about this game, because to bet the Chiefs to win the AFC West is minus 800, in some spots. And, the money line on this game is currently minus 400-ish, right? So, but in reality, if the Raiders were to win this game, the AFC West is very much in play. And so I think that this is one of those where people are going to be gravitating towards the Raiders in a couple reasons. One is we haven't seen the Chiefs play in a while. The last time we saw them play, Phillip Rivers played like crap, and they still almost won. They would have covered this number. The Raiders are on a bounce back spot, right? Like the Raiders got drilled against the Jets, and this game's been playing at 1:25 West Coast time, right? So it's very much not a terrible spot for them. And the Chiefs are still all this kind of stuff. I think that they're playing like they're trying to entice people to bet the Raiders here. But if you look long term, the Chiefs are the side, in my opinion. So that's kind of where I lean. The hard part is, and we talked about this Monday, is when a defense is as bad as the Chiefs, it's really hard to lay multiple scores, because there's always that back door open for the other team to score that touchdown that takes it from a 2-score game to a 1-score game.
I'm with you. The interesting thing, Pat Mahomes has regressed a little bit this season. His negative throw rate is now a top 10 figure. It was second to Breeze last season. So there is some reason to be a little, from a clean pocket. There is some reason to be, a little.
It's a play or two a game, right? And that has been the difference between the Chiefs scoring, 30-something points a game and 20-something points a game.
All right, next up, Sunday night, the actual Sunday night game. Our boss, Chris, is going to be doing this game. He doesn't have to do Thanksgiving. We got to work Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have to work Thanksgiving. That's how you know you've made it. You can say, hey, actually, I'm going to take this one off.
I call the Thursday night game the Mike Tirico game from now on.
Who, by the way, is better than every other person.
I know, it's unreal.
That does football games every Sunday.
He's like the one broadcaster besides Chris that could make you watch college football, because as much as you dig college football, you are always watching the Notre Dame NBC game.
True. I do think highly of Mike Tirico. He's also a good dude. The Patriots are going to Houston, going back to NRG Stadium, where apparently they made a great comeback. I really hope they get down big in this game, so that Chris and Al have to talk about the fact that they were once down 28-3. They are a 3-point favorite in Houston. And the Texans, I feel like everyone was pretty high on them. I was really high on Deshaun Watson as an MVP candidate, and everything has just gone sort of completely to crap. Are you continuing to do you still have faith in Deshaun Watson? He's a home underdog, or are you
Yeah, so this is interesting because it's minus 3.5 even money, or minus 3 minus 120. You're in that area here, which I think we'd shade a little bit towards the Patriots, but honestly, it's basically break even in that situation. So, this is a situation where I think you look at Houston, all the signs point in their direction. They're a home underdog. They're coming off of 10 days of rest. New England had a very hard-fought home game in the rain. That was an impressive win, a win they really needed to have in order to keep the AFC supremacy, all that kind of stuff. So you can come back and say, okay, Houston's getting healthier. Houston is, Houston needs this more than the Patriots, so on and so forth. And in that spot, I just want to fade all of it and bet the Patriots.
Yeah, I like the Patriots here.
Yeah.
It's hard for me not to see Tom Brady having a very easy time against this defense.
Well, that's the thing. So if you look at this and say, okay, what could go wrong? So if you pre-mortem this game, okay, what went wrong for the Patriots against the Ravens? Okay, well, the Ravens are an extremely smart team that outwitted the Patriots. Okay, that's not freaking happening in this game, right? The only way that Houston beats New England is by sheer being better, right? Yeah. How did Houston beat Indianapolis the other day? Well, they beat Indianapolis because Will Fuller's better than the schmuck that was the second corner for Indianapolis, and Deshaun Watson hit DeAndre Hopkins a few times over Pierre Desir, who he's far better than, even though Desir's a pretty good player. Stephon Gilmore is not Pierre Desir, right? So DeAndre Hopkins is going to have to grind out catches in this game. Will Fuller is not somebody that Bill Belichick is going to let beat him. So that side of it, I don't see happening. Yeah. And then Baltimore's defense is good enough to make the Patriots pay for mistakes. Houston's is not.
Not even close. No, it's very interesting. I mean, Stephon Gilmore this season, you are better off throwing the ball away than targeting Stephon Gilmore. His pass rating allowed when you target him is below 39.8. Yeah. It's nuts. So I'm with you there. Let's go to the Monday night game, which is your Minnesota Vikings, team that you want to bet on to win the Super Bowl, in Seattle, playing the Seattle Seahawks. A game that I believe we watched last year yeah. at the Ruth Chris in Cincinnati, which was the worst Ruth Chris I have been to ever.
Well, Booger sat next to us at the bar.
That's true. That might have been it.
Told us how much
it was either that or the poorly cooked steak. I don't know which one. But we had a good time nonetheless, which is proof that, right, it's important who you invite over to your Thanksgiving table.
My Vikings fan friends, when I revealed that I was rooting for the Seattle to go over their win total for the Vikings to go under theirs, said I wasn't a real fan anymore, which probably a badge of honor here. Seattle laying 3.
I was really hoping this was 2.5.
But it's minus 105. So clearly there's some appetite for people to be betting on the Vikings here.
Yep. Coming off of a bye.
Seattle is a profoundly flawed team. I'm going to say this every single week. Seattle, honestly, if they're playing any team other than the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday, they lose.
Yep.
I think. Chris Carson's a fumble machine. Rashad Penny's rounder around the waist than I am.
No, he legitimately makes you look thin.
Yeah, and
which is a compliment.
There's so much there. They were without Jadeveon Clowney. They really don't have a tight. Wilson missed a wide open Jacob Hollister in the corner that resulted in a field goal. So all this stuff, and yet at the same time, I like Seattle in this game. Just basically from a numbers perspective, I think that the quarterback carries so much here.
I am with you. In a hostile environment, Kirk Cousins is not my favorite guy. And I know that he's played really, really well. But Russell Wilson has played better. Russell Wilson is the MVP of the National Football League. As great as Lamar Jackson has been, and it has been great, a lot of that is just quite simply the scheme is really awesome, and he is the perfect player to take advantage of it. And Russell Wilson transcends that. He has been undeniably, it's possible for both of them to be great and one of them to be more valuable than the other. Russell Wilson right now, 7% of his throws are big-time throws. 1% of his throws are turnover-worthy plays. So it's nuts. It's crazy that ratio. And as a result, he's carried the Seahawks. I am nervous, though, because the Seahawks, to me, when they play good teams, they are going to have to grind out a close game. I just don't see them running away from a team. And so the chances of this being a 3-point or, 1 or 2 point game, especially with Pete Field Goal Carroll, scare me. So I'm with you, but it worries me a little bit. I could also, I hate unders, but
I feel like this is an under game. I
feel like it plays under too.
Because the both of the teams like to run the football. Both of the teams like to, they're efficient offensively. And the thing about unders, it's not so much, and we talked about this with Oakland versus Cincinnati, it's not so much about being a bad offense. It's about being efficient in the correct way for an under. And both of these teams, like especially Minnesota, I would say, run the football. Yeah, Minnesota especially run the football well enough to like kill drives near midfield and punts, and those punts are really conducive to unders. And the other thing, of course, is you talk about Wilson 1.3 turnover worthy play percentage. Kirk Cousins is at 2.13. So neither of these teams are going to create a ton of turnovers in the other team's side of the field. So the under, I think, is a good play here. And we see a small amount of value, basically, a little bit above break even there. So, this is a compelling game. It'll be a lot of fun to watch for the second straight year on Monday Night Football.
Okay, so all the good games, kind of hard to bet. I think we have a couple that we like. But let's run through the rest and see if we can find any that we like more than that.
Yeah.
I'm going to start in Carolina. The Carolina Panthers are 9.5-point favorites to the Washington Redskins. And Dwayne, I think he's sort of earning his H back. He's got like half the H now.
Yeah.
He finally managed to hit Terry McLaurin a couple of times.
Yeah.
I am still not on the Kyle Allen bandwagon. But I was totally wrong. We were totally wrong about the New Orleans Saints being able to go out and crush them. And it would seem as though they should be able to crush the Washington Redskins because everyone is able to do that. But 9.5 is a lot, and the Panthers like to run the ball with Christian McCaffrey, and the Redskins like to run the ball, and the total is 39.5. And it is hard to win a game by 10 or more points when you are scoring so few in total. So, are you with me on the Spreadskins?
I mean, at 9.5, I'd rather have it be 10, but at 9.5, I think Washington's the side here. The issue that I have is I think if I'm going to bet Carolina is Kyle Allen is not very good, and the defense for the Washingtons is nowhere near as bad as people are giving them credit for.
True.
And in fact, I would say, to play towards the over here, I think both defenses are sufficiently bad for there to be enough big plays for this to go over the 39.5 that's currently lined at. So, I mean, this is a game that is compelling to me from a betting perspective, especially if Dwayne, who's going to, I mean, Bradbury's been a pretty good corner this year, but they have McLaurin, they have Paul Richardson. I think that the Washington will get enough points to keep us close.
I'm with you. Jets-Bengals, the second or worst game of the season, depending on how you view it. Andy Dalton is back, and so the Jets being 3.5-point favorites on the road seems a little bit much to me. As much as being on the road, which is this stadium over here, which gets like 200 people a game, is kind of a joke. I mean, it legitimately is, because I come to the office on my way, about when the 1 p.m. games start. And there are more people walking the opposite direction of the stadium than there are walking towards it. It's absolutely comical. There's no one in there. That being said,
this is almost the exact same spot to me as Oakland going to the Jets last week being 3.5-point favorites. To me, I think the Bengals are the side, and I think there's a very good chance that they get their first win this week.
I'm with you. God, that sounds terrible.
My God. Here's the question, though.
It's the better quarterback at home getting points.
Here's the question, though. Is it lock of the week worthy, or is it just article worthy?
Our lock of the week is the Cincinnati Bengals.
I'm telling you, man.
I'm going to cry.
Yeah. I like it as a bet. I really do.
Can I tell you what is a lock of the week option?
Okay.
The Indianapolis Colts at home against your Tennessee Titans. We have an argument. What exactly was it?
I said that Tennessee was better than Indianapolis on a neutral field.
Yes. You think Tennessee is just better than Indianapolis, which is absolutely hilarious. So the Colts are just 2.5-point favorites, which means the market is right in the middle. They think these teams are basically dead even. Mm-hmm. And I will take all of the Frank Reich futures. This is just what the Titans do. The Titans are, we're going to really impress you this week. And then the next week, we're going to go poop on the field.
Yeah, and so if you look at some of the underlyings, obviously, Tannehill has been great, a 127 passer rating when clean. 5% of his throws have been big-time throws. Only 3% have been turnover-worthy, while Brissett is sort of more in that confined range where he's pretty good when clean, decent when pressured, and then not that many big-time throws. The thing that worries me a little bit about this game, because our numbers like Indianapolis, what worries me about this game is the
health of T.Y.
Hilton.
Yeah.
And via Pro Football Talk, he said he's unsure of this week's status. So, because I think T.Y. Hilton changes things a lot, and I don't think the loss of Marlon Mack matters at all. Obviously, Jonathan Williams was more than good enough in his stead last week. But without T.Y. Hilton, it's a tough one for me, just because I do think that the Titans defense is good enough to stop some of the things that Indianapolis wants to do. That being said, I agree. At the coach, Indianapolis is better, and that carries a lot in a division game where we know that those things end up pretty close in the end.
And this game really matters for the Colts.
And it matters for both teams for sure. They're both at 6-5. I think fighting for playoff positioning.
A chance.
Just a chip, chair, and a chance for one of these teams. Yeah.
The Bucs go to Jacksonville to play the Jaguars. The battle of Florida teams that aren't gonna tank, I guess.
Yeah.
The Jags are a 1-point favorite at home, and I am enticed. But I am also not an idiot. And so I'm just not like Jameis Winston, man. It's such a roller coaster to watch you play.
42 passer rating when pressured. 5.5% of his throws are turnover worthy.
Dude, it's amazing.
But he's like second in the NFL in passing yards, which we, again, like that was one thing that we sort of said it was a decent future bet. Man. But Nick Foles looked like bad Nick Foles last week against Tennessee.
He did.
This is a game that I will probably look at the score every once in a while, but don't need to tune into. I don't think that there's a ton here.
Okay.
Other than if you bet the Bucs over for season win total, they're in play now. They have to win 3 more games, but yeah,
couldn't agree more with you. Let's move on. Lord in heaven, please. The Eagles and the Dolphins.
Yeah, let's just ignore this game.
Go to Green Line. You can check it out.
Fuck.
Better quarterback at home.
Stop.
I'm not even being that facetious. Carson Wentz and the Eagles offense is so bad.
So bad.
The Giants at home face the Packers, and they are 6.5-point favorites. And this is a game where on Monday morning we felt good about this being a get-right spot for the Green Bay Packers. This is the team that the Packers are just going to dominate and annihilate after that embarrassing loss. Our models are kind of ambivalent, so I'm just going to ask you. You have to pick one side. Which one are you going with?
I'll lay the points with the Packers. Daniel Jones makes too many mistakes. As our friend Josh wrote on 538, he just literally can't read his own defense.
You hate to see it. Pittsburgh Steelers are 2-point underdogs at home with Duck Hodges against the Cleveland Browns in a rematch of the helmet swinging game. By the way, did you see the Cleveland Browns? So I like the Steelers for one reason and one reason only. The Cleveland Browns in the parking lot before their game had a woman swinging a helmet at a Mason Rudolph piñata.
She was having a real normal one.
I saw that and I was like, they're going to get just drilled in Pittsburgh because the karma that you are putting on yourself, the bad juju that is coming with that, is going to be too much to overcome. And this is exactly the spot, right? They kill the Dolphins. All is right. They're on the way to the playoffs, and then,
yeah, they get the beak.
Are you with me?
Yeah, I think they get the beak.
There's no reason not to think that it's a bill.
A bill, yeah. I don't know. They get the beak.
Nick, that is a turnover worthy joke. That was also a really bad joke. I'm embarrassed for myself, but that was a terrible joke. You got anything else on this game to redeem yourself?
No. Bet Pittsburgh on the money line if you like it.
It's a duck bill.
Look, man.
The Los Angeles Rams go to Arizona to face the Arizona Cardinals. I have a question for you that is not super related to this game. Everyone is geeking out about Lamar Jackson running this offense in Baltimore. What would Kyler Murray look like in that offense?
Great. I'd probably not as good, although he's a better passer, I think. I think he's not as fast. So I think Murray is like a different kind of runner, But I mean, to Cliff Kingsbury's credit, he's a top 5 offensive play caller in our metric right now. He's getting a lot more out of Murray than I think most people. I mean, they're a positive EPA per run and pass team this year. This was a terrible offense last year.
Yeah.
And so I'm impressed, and I think he would have success in that Ravens offense, probably not as much as Lamar.
Okay. So, speaking of this game, the Cardinals, coming off bye, face the Rams, and are 3-point underdogs at home. And the thing is, there's such a drastic difference between the Ravens and the Cardinals that the Rams team can look dramatically different in this game than they did against the Ravens.
Yeah.
That being said, I have a very hard time. With it because they looked so bad.
Yeah, but
I think there's value.
Do you think? Okay, so if we look at our ELO ranking, for example, this is. This makes sense from a pure numbers perspective. You're obviously Arizona is gaining the bye, right? And then the Rams are losing a day of rest. But this is a bounce back. I mean, the question becomes, so again, like this is a like stupid trend or angle type of thing, but like, do the Rams let down because their playoff hopes are basically dead? Or do they come, or is the letdown is a bounce back spot? Like, that's why I think all of these are sort of small sample BS, but that's really what you have to like take into consideration when you look at this game. And for that reason, I kind of want to lay off just because I just don't know. I honestly don't know the motivation of these two teams.
Yep.
The Cardinals seem like a team much similar, not to offend you guys, but like the 2017 Niners, where they went from being awful to having a pulse, and down the stretch, that team played really well, right? And they wanted to prove a point that they're a real NFL team, and so they hammered home all these teams that had lack of motivation in that spot. And so I could very well see the Cardinals doing that, being like, look, we're actually decent this year. We're not 2-14 like we were last year, or whatever, and make a statement and beat the Rams here. So
here's the only thing I will say: if the Rams lose to the Cardinals here,
Sean McVay's coaching the Browns next year.
We've got to really, people are going to be talking about, you couldn't beat the Cardinals a year after going to the Super Bowl. There's some problems. So the motivation to me is there. I think Jared Goff is probably the worst quarterback in this matchup, which is hilarious.
But the Cardinals defense is awful. So the Rams could get healthy here. So I don't know.
The Rams are currently averaging a negative expected points added per pass play. Just think about that for a second.
It's brutal.
I mean, it's hilarious. The Cardinals are positive in both the run and the pass, which says a lot about that.
The Rams
offense.
have played a tough schedule, and I think we could be underestimating how much this thing lightening up on them could help them.
I'm with you. The last game that we haven't discussed is Chargers-Broncos, and this game is Chargers by 3. And I have no feeling either way on that. The only thing I will say is the total is 38.5. And that's a very low number, and I think it goes over 38.5.
Yeah, I think the Chargers off of a bye are going to want to get right offensively, and I think Denver is better, although Derwin James is coming back. Denver is probably going to have more offense than people envision, especially after last week where they got rolled by Buffalo.
I'm with you.
Okay, what game do we like? It's a tough week.
Man. I am struggling with this.
I have a vote. I think I have my game.
I mean, I was going to say the Colts, but the T.Y. Hilton thing really does bug me. I really like the Niners, but it's 6, not 6.5. I really like the Patriots, but I think it's the Patriots for me.
Yeah, I'm with you here. I think New England is going to roll Houston, unfortunately, for Houston. So there are, for me, the secondary one would have been the Rams, just sort of going against my own intuition, and sort of fading recency and everything. But for me, I think this is a game where if you are the Patriots, you are afraid of Baltimore catching you. I think there's going to be no lack of motivation here. Belichick against one of his former coaches, it's not perfect. Obviously, he lost to Patricia last year, but again, a good spot there indoors, right? So we talk about Brady and, sort of maybe a weaker arm, the elbow and everything. I don't think that comes into play inside. And I just don't think Houston is going to be able to beat them when Watson's in the pocket for 7 seconds, and even the Patriots pass rushers can get there. So
I'm totally with you.
Okay, so let's go ahead.
This is the Brady returns to glory game. Isaiah Wynn is back. He didn't play great against Dallas, but he was really good in week 1. I think he's getting his feet.
Well, plus Houston doesn't really. Whitney Merciless is good, but they don't really have the horses anymore with Clowney gone and Watt gone. So defensively, I'm sorry, but Bill Belichick's not going to be afraid of Jonathan Joseph and Garyon Conley, right? So I think that the Patriots get healthy here, extend their record to what would now be 11-1. Yeah, I like this. Mohamed Sanu questionable. I think he probably plays. So
God help us, please.
Yep.
That's Steve's job. Steve's supposed to be destroying things. All right, that was the Thanksgiving edition. I hope you can still hear us. If not, you're missing out on the Cincinnati Y.
Yeah.
Do you have any stories this week?
No. The only issue, our friend Dan was saying, it is very empty there.
Well, you know why?
Thanksgiving. People are not,
Oh, I don't think that's why.
Oh.
The Cincinnati Y is redoing the showers.
I think you have a high opinion of people's cleanliness.
The Cincinnati Y are redoing the showers, and there have been a couple of days where both sets of showers have been closed. Now, I am not some weak-minded peasant who is going to let closure of the showers get in the way of working out.
Yeah.
So I did a little bit of recon. I talked to one of the lifeguards who I see frequently at the pool. I said, where is there a shower that I can use? So he pointed me in the direction of a bathroom that has a shower. It's basically you open the bathroom door and there's a barrier between where the shower is and then there's a changing room. So I'm like, okay, great. So I go to the gym. I work out. It's last Friday. And I go downstairs. I get my towel. And someone's in there. Which I'm like, okay, I understand it. Someone else found the bathroom with the shower. They're getting a shower in. I'm sure they understand that because there's one frickin' shower, they'll be quick.
Nope.
Sitting there, wait about 3 minutes. Water's still on. So I knock. Just let them know someone's waiting. Another 3 minutes go by. It's been 6 minutes so far. I knock again. This time I really put some oomph into it. Another 3 minutes go by. This dude has been showering for 9 minutes. I'm about to knock. The water turns off. So finally, after 9 minutes of running the water, done. Now, the nice thing is that this dude could put a towel on, open the door, let me shower while he changes. Because that's how the bathroom is constructed. But no. So at this point, I know this dude can hear me. I'm banging on the door. If this guy's changing, he has got to be terrified. I was like, you better be scared when you walk out of this bathroom. I said, I am not leaving.
Yeah.
If you think you're going to wait me out, I am not leaving. I will be here until you come out. This peasant munchkin walks out of there with just jeans on. He looks like a midget Teletubby. I mean, it is an embarrassment. No shirt on, comes waddling out, won't even look at me. And I am MFing this dude into the earth's crust. I follow him into the locker room for a good 5 steps before I go and take my shower. I hope everything goes wrong for this dude. I waited 15 minutes to take a shower. This was such a bad. This made me so angry that it beat out the story of a woman talking about how she's a vegan and what that means for her Thanksgiving for an entirety of a workout a couple mornings ago. That's how angry this dude made me.
At least if you're going to be, if you're going to go orthogonal to norms in a locker room, at least have the decency to look that person in the face and say, "Do you have a problem with me?" Right? Because if this person stepped out and said, "Hey, George, you got a freaking problem with that?" then I would have more respect for him than just to be like this little mousy guy that's being protected by society, which is fine. But because that guy the other week was like, "Why are you taking up this commentary?" And I'm like, "You got a problem with it?"
I was terrified that he was going to be this massive dude. Then I thought about all the people I've seen at the YMCA, and I realized that ain't happening.
You made a very statistical, judgment there.
Here's the thing: there's only one guy that works out there regularly who is bigger, stronger, faster in every facet. Dude, we played basketball with.
Mm-hmm.
Guy's a machine. But I already saw him working out, so I knew it wasn't him. Anyways, that is our show for this week. We hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. We will be back with you guys on Sunday night. Go
Pats.
Go Pats.